Well, this afternoon, I'm making a sacrifice for my viewers. It's 5:09. It's 93 degrees outside, probably about 70% humidity. And as soon as I get out of the car, horseflies are gonna start coming after me. They bite, it hurts. But I want to take you down to the river, and that means taking you down into horsefly territory, and we'll see how it goes. So I'm on this old gravel road that my grandfather made that led from the barn to the river. It's about a mile. It was a regular, once we got old enough, it was a regular chore was to go with him to the gravel pit, get a, ooh, there's flies all over the place. Maybe you can hear them. I'll be quiet. We'll see if you can hear that. But when we got old enough, put some shovels in the back of the pickup, go to the gravel pit, fill up the back of the truck, get on the road, toss out gravel on low spots, and just maintain it. It's a good road, but there's a problem. And let's get you oriented again. We're about a mile east of the barn, mile east of the house. And we're in the river environment. It's the Amite River. And the Amite River is a meandering river. There are no levees. And so the river has been cutting, and our road no longer leads, well, it leads to the river, but it doesn't lead to our gravel bar. But today I'm going to walk you over there. Right here, I'm on what's called a cut bank. And you can see downriver, you can see where there's evidence of the river's cut. If you look on the other side of the river, you see gravel. That's where it's depositing. So cut bank to the right, point bar to the left. Cutting away, eroding land to the right, depositing gravel to the left. This road used to lead to Point Bar. That's where we played, we fished, set trot lines, we camped. And now, the Point Bar has moved downstream. And I'm getting ready to take you there. And hopefully I don't get eaten up. This might be a good place. This might be a good place to start. We needed to build a new access to the river because the river was cutting into the road. And so, yeah, it was a family effort. But my little brother, he's done most of the work. And we're not in pine forest anymore. We're in a hardwood section. Much of it's been logged, but it's coming back into, it's a beech magnolia climax forest. Really different look. And that forest is growing in, a series of old river channels that some people call them sloughs, some people call them bayous. But they're great for duck hunting or duck viewing. They're great for bald cypress groves that we've got a few around here, just gorgeous trees. One, it's kind of an exceptional tree because it's a deciduous conifer. But so I'm walking on a road that, we've been working on it, I guess about 4 years. This clay came from our property. I'll take you to the clay pit maybe tomorrow. And right now I'm taking you on to our new bridge. Well, actually, our first bridge. And this bridge goes over, this is an old channel of the Amite River. And it's slow moving, if at all. It fills up. There's been water over this bridge during floods. If we go over here, you'll see there's trees down. That was all from, let's see, Hurricane Ida got some, but even before that, there were some tornadoes that spun out of the northeast quadrant of a hurricane, which is that's pretty much the pattern. And they ran right through, the tornadoes came right through the place and took down some hardwood. That's a beech that's laying across a slough, but it took down some big oaks. But let's continue on, and I'll shut it down so I can swat horseflies. You might notice that the road's turned to sand, and that's because we're in that dynamic riverine environment. And this is, yeah, we're on what was an old point bar that includes gravel and sand. And yeah, it's not easy to drive. This part's actually kind of cool. This part wasn't logged, and it's not a full canopy, but it's kind of nice. A lot of river birches. I think it's Juglans nigra. There's some sycamores, not the same kind as we have in Chico. And this area is regularly flooded. But yeah, it's part of this river environment that is much wider than the river channel. And I'm walking in sand, and I'm almost to the promised land. It rhymed. And the reason I'm saying promised land, one is I love the river. Second, for some reason, the horseflies just drop off once you get out of this forest. There's some of those river birches. Let's see if we can zoom in. You can see that scaly bark. That's a beautiful tree. All right, but let's get down here to childhood, well, actually, full life playground. Ooh, I'm walking in sand. Not making good time anymore. Ooh, got an egret down there. I'm used to seeing gray herons when I come out on the bar. Today it's an egret. You see that white bird on a log. I hope. I got too much glare. I hope you're seeing this. But let me go back out. Oh, there he goes. Ah, man, that's a beautiful bird. Doesn't seem to be much bothered by me. Phew, I hope that came through. You got to see that graceful bird. Okay. Oh, I guess the egret was bothered by me. Head down river. So, when I first showed you the river, we were standing on a cut bank. And here, we're standing on a point bar. And if we did a Google Earth look, you would see a sequence of point bars, cut banks, point bar, cut banks. Point bars show up on Google Earth as white. Cut banks is just usually forest, so it's green. But it's part of this dynamic environment that I've been talking. Man, it's kind of hot. This dynamic environment that I've been talking about. This is the eastern edge of my grandfather's property. And it was kind of funny because, well, the river was a resource for him to fish. And so we fished a lot. We set traps. We ran lines. We caught a lot of catfish. But he didn't swim. He didn't like us swimming. He didn't like us camping. He just got scared. So the river, we use it very differently than what he did. This river, the Amite River, People pronounce it differently down here. Some people say Amite. Some people say Amite. Some people say it like I do, Amite. And it's just three different pronunciations of a French word, Amite, which brings up a little bit of the history of this state. The Amite River is not a tributary or a distributary of the Mississippi River. It is in the watershed immediately to the east of the Mississippi River. And so in 1803, when the U.S. made the Louisiana Purchase and bought all that land from France, this part was not included in the deal, because the Louisiana Purchase was essentially the drainage basin of the Mississippi and the Missouri rivers. And this is not in the drainage basin of the Mississippi. The headwaters of the Amite River are up in Philadelphia, Mississippi. About, it's probably 100 miles from here. And the Amite River does not run into the Mississippi. So it's not a tributary. It flows into Lake Maurepas, which flows into Lake Pontchartrain, and some of those waters next to New Orleans, and some of those waters eventually get into the Gulf of Mexico. So this wasn't part of Louisiana Purchase. It's one reason that this hunk of ground is, well, at one time was called the Florida parishes. Florida as in Spanish territory beginning in northern Florida around Jacksonville, St. Augustine, and extending westward to the Mississippi River. So this area is, no, I'm gonna stand in the shade. That is hot. There's River Birch. Thank you for the shade, River Birch. This parish next door, they weren't part of Louisiana when it got statehood. They quickly joined, but they're still known as the Florida parishes, and it distinguishes them as not being part of the Louisiana Purchase. I wish there was a way you could ask questions, but yeah, there we go. I come out here every time I come down, whether it's winter, summer, whenever I come down, because especially after a flood, I like coming because there's new deposits on this point bar, and I've got several different fragments of, some of them pretty large, of Indian pottery. And so we're in a landscape that was, yeah, it was dynamic, but it also was inhabited by indigenous peoples of generally the Choctaw group. And so when I come out here, we like to skip rocks, but I'm looking for arrowheads and pottery. I've had most luck finding examples of pottery. I had thought maybe I'd plant one of my pieces, but that would be too cheesy, and y'all would know it was a total posed segment, so I didn't do that. But at some point during this visit, I'll come down here, and it's just involves staring at gravel and walking slowly. And these gravels, well, you can trace them to the Ozarks. The Mississippi doesn't have point bar. The Mississippi is known as the Big Muddy. It's not known for point bars that have a lot of gravel. It's got point bars that have sand and silt. But as I mentioned earlier, we're not in the Mississippi drainage basin. Some of y'all might like fishing. All right, so let's do this. I like to fish on cut banks because there's often deep holes. That means places where the channel's deep, because that's where it's cutting. So I would go, yeah, I'd go across the river because there's cut bank, probably a deep hole. If I were setting lines, I'd be on this side of the river. We call them trot lines. And what we would do is seine bait, which is involves two people with a long net, and we're catching minnows, and then we put them on hooks, and then we string it's a line of, I don't know, 10 to 12 hooks, put a minnow on each one, post it in shallow water on the point bar side, and then have a weight on the other end, toss it into the river. And if you're really serious about fishing, you camp out here and you run your lines every couple hours, and you're basically catching catfish. Catfish, or you might catch some perch, which you cut them up, put them on a hook if you run out of minnows. But if the perch is big enough, well, we keep it because Mama loves perch. Not a buzzing fly around here. But now I gotta walk back through. That's really interesting. Look at those willows over there on the other side. So on the other side, you've got relatively recently, deposited gravel. Above the gravel, you've got willows. Above the willows, you've got some pines. I see magnolia. You got a mixed hardwood pine forest, coniferous forest. And on our side, you see river birch, you see willows, tallow trees, which are an invasive species, but they kind of like it. Got a sycamore over there. Yeah, I could do a whole lecture, a semester on this environment, both how it's used and how it changes, what the different plant and animal species are. But, uh-oh, horsefly found me. That means it's time to shut it down.